Hello everyone, this is Martin Goldberg from Silverman Radio. Hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to be talking about a request I received from a subscriber who's a Brit, which automatically makes it more interesting. It goes as follows. Commander Martin, I was hoping to get your insight on a phenomenon that I've observed. Many of you Yanks, Yank, is that like what chicks do to me? I don't know, that's something separate. Have this aspiration to earn a six-figure salary, and I was curious if you believe this is the key to success in the United States, or why so many individuals seem desperate after a particular number in compensation. Well, that's an excellent question, and obviously in Europe, I think they have a little bit less of a career ladder climbing centric culture like the United States. They're probably not as big of the workaholics, so it's harder to see. Getting six figures in the United States is definitely not about being happy, and it's not even about being rich per se. I've been the guy making less than minimum wage. Now I make six figures. There isn't a whole lot of difference, except your bank account at the end of the month is growing substantially, assuming that you're responsible with your money. But no, fundamentally, I wouldn't say you're going to be a much happier person. It's more to the tune of this. Depending on where you're living in the United States, and on this front, I'm going to eliminate the Bay Area, K-Fry City in New York, also Washington, D.C., and Miami. If you are living not in one of those regions, maybe a place that has a decent amount of economic opportunity, but the housing costs and the taxes aren't astronomically high, six figures is the breaking point to where you can actually have a decent quality of life. After all your obligations, all your deductions, you can afford maybe a nice vacation. You can afford to drive a car you want to without mortgaging your life away with a very high interest rate. This is where we have the divide because, like for instance, my uncle was a doctor for a long time in the EU. He just recently retired. He had a good career, but he was not a doctor in the United States where you're making X amount of money and you've got the mansion, you drive the sports car. Now, to whatever extent those people are actually in good financial standing and not in debt, I don't know. The point is that Europe has a different tax climate, and some people support it, some people decry it. Right now, the EU is trying to push for more deregulation, more cutting of benefits because they don't have much economic growth, they don't have a lot of population growth, and that's why I think you see people like Vestager trying to get all that money from the multinationals, which in some fronts it's just, but I also think the EU recognizes it needs money to fund these projects, and it's running out. That's why they're trying to go after the corporations so much. So you say, okay, what do you get with taxes in Europe? They're very high. You have value added, you have income taxes, a lot of fees here and there, a lot of regulations. Well, okay, so much of your income is taxed, but through that, what you receive, national health care. That is pretty good, as I understand, for preventive care, general care. I don't know if it's good when it comes to specialized care or treatment, but at least in that front, you're doing okay. And because the EU has much better food production laws, you're less likely to be consuming stuff that has a lot of preservatives and ridiculous amounts of sugar. And coupled with the fact that a lot of Europeans walk more, although that has changed, I believe, they're becoming a little bit more sedentary, your health outcomes perhaps are slightly better when it gets to the point later on in life when you tend to get sick. So there's probably different ways to look at that, but I do think Europeans on average eat healthier than those people in the United States. And then, so you get the healthcare, you usually have subsidized education, you want to get a master's or PhD, you're not going to be in debt most of your life. You have to pay I think it's 2,000 or 3,000 euros for a master's from what I've looked at. You also have the old age pension, which some people say is unsustainable, but even though your life isn't extravagant, I guess it's comfortable. Also, you have guaranteed vacation from the government in most countries, so you don't have to wait 20 years to have enough leave in order to take a vacation, or you're going to be fired if you take some time off. Even if it's unpaid in the United States, you'll find some companies that will do that. On the flip side, you got the United States. Most people, let's say they're in the 22% bracket, which will probably go back to 25 in a few years here. So you pay those taxes. You might have a state income tax, maybe have a municipal tax. You have to factor all of that in. You have property taxes to be concerned about. You have, in some cases, car taxes. And what happens is, and this is the tricky part, you pay, let's say, about 30% in taxes overall. You've got to get your healthcare premiums deducted. You've got to put in your 401k. Maybe if you have a pension, you take that out. You've got very high rent costs or mortgage, again, depending on which part of the country you live in, so that takes more out. You might have, let's say you have kids, you've got to pay for daycare, all those sorts of things, car payment. Basically, at six figures in most cases, unless you're in a high cost area, once you've taken care of all that, the kind of basic subsistence, existence expenses as I describe them, you have enough money to kind of enjoy your life. That's why people obsess over six figures in the United States. It's not because at six figures you're necessarily well off. Now, if you budget well and you don't spend a lot, sure, a six-figure person can do phenomenally well, especially if they're in more of a rural area. Maybe you commute into work, or you're a successful lawyer or doctor in a rural area. The problem is if you're in that position where ostensibly you have the six-figure salary, but you spend too much money, or you live in a high-cost area. So yeah, it becomes a trade-off. Do you want higher taxes? This is what you get, because we might pay 25, 30% in taxes, maybe more. You pay taxes on your investments as well, which I don't really agree with, at least not at the level they like to tax it. And what do you get out of it? You get Social Security, which is falling apart for two different reasons. One of it is because they did not design it to adapt to a changing workforce. Also because politicians have been robbing the funds for decades. You have a bankrupt old age insurance program, Medicare, which only covers 80% of the cost. So that's why when you get older, they'll encourage you to get a Medicare Advantage supplement plan, because if you go to the hospital and you get like a $150,000 hospital bill, this is not extreme. I know people have experienced this. Well, they'll cover 80%. Now you got to pay the rest of it. And if you don't pay the rest of it, they'll come after you, try to take your house, your car, or other possessions, your bank accounts. Even if your parents have let you inherit all that stuff, if it's been too recently, the hospitals, the insurance companies can try to seize all that property. So it's a screwed up system, which is almost why instead of pushing for Medicare for all, millennials might want to be advocating that Medicare just cover old people 100% and maybe allow them to take it later on in life, because you could easily lose a lot of your inheritance if you don't set it up properly when it comes to how quickly they give it all up to you. Yeah, it's a screwed up system, but that's just how it functions. So you also have a lot of your tax money going to foreign aid that doesn't work, that just enriches people in poor countries. You have a lot of your money going to these military campaigns, and then, well, we put in the government here, now we can take the refugees that we created. Now we can fight the new terrorist group. I mean, all this nonsense with killing al-Baghdadi, and everyone wants to celebrate like they did with bin Laden. It's like, okay, Baghdadi is the new bin Laden, and who's going to be the next person who will be the bogeyman that America has to fight? We spend billions of dollars, and what do you get out of it, right? Infrastructure is falling apart. The public education system is a disaster. People are getting all this student debt. We have a dysfunctional government that spends too much money, and yet you don't receive a whole lot of it back. You get a lot of it sent overseas. So that really becomes the difference. I'm not an advocate of higher taxes, but I think the taxes we pay could be much better used for Americans as opposed to saving the world. But that's kind of the American complex. There was an old Indian chief, he said that America needs to have Indians. They need to have a motivation to go and get the bad guy or liberate these people, but oftentimes comes at the expense of Americans who aren't in power and wealthy and influential. So that's the deal with six figures. It's sad that so many people fixate on it, but it becomes almost a necessity in today's day and age, unless you live in a very rural, cost-effective area of the country.